Good morning. This is the Eager Beaver Show.
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Miss V Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters. PsychicTarot.ca, book your tarot reading and unlock your spiritual journey. And the Pepper Master, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. Well, good morning and hello, kids and cubs, and welcome to Season 5 and episode number 802 of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. Oh, Canada, always 100% Canadian. Today, recording day is, it's Tuesday, December 2nd, 2025, and it's going to be a colder day here at the Beaver Lodge. Not too cold, of course, but, among the colder ones so far this year. But, of course, again it is December, and there is a light dusting of snow on the ground to start the day. We'll see if it lasts the day, but it's there. So it's everything has a tasty layer of powdered sugar, especially at this time of the morning where nothing has been disturbed yet. I am your host, the Eager Beaver, pronouns he, him, hey, Mr. Beaver, A. And not with me, as usual, is my good friend, Mr. Grizzly, although he has started his daily growl. If you have not seen it yet, it is available on our YouTube page under the live tab, I believe it is. So if you can find it there, he has his first one, shorter offerings, but less than 20 minutes, this one, but a two-parter. Starting off with leaving the damn fam with a little cliffhanger. Not so much a cliffhanger, but there were two segments to the story, so he's doing them in over 2 days. So hopefully he's able to do that regularly and contribute that way. And so please, if you have the opportunity, do check it out. All right. Let's see what else. What else have we got here? Oh, yes. Big thank you goes to our podcast's founding sponsors, the Pepper Master, the Miss V Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, and PsychicTarot.ca. How is your mental health doing today, damn fam? Mine is doing well. I haven't, how would I put it? There's something called post-event drop. It hasn't hit yet. So I'm still coasting on the good everything from the show, and probably might hit Thursday when we're not going back to the theater, and that might be when it hits. But yeah, so far I have not had the post-event drop, and usually that happens sometimes after a big event that you've been looking forward to, or that's happened, and that's been very exciting. And there's nothing there anymore. I mean, there are a core group of about 30, well, more than 34 people, if you include the whole production team. But about like 40, 45 people that I've spent about 4 days a week with or more for the past 2 months. And one day just not, right? So yeah, there's a how would I put it? And when you get a group that's that special, like we had with this one, you feel that. Yeah. So I'm expecting at some point to have that post event drop, and what it is um, a little down, a little down. You know, it's like a funk that can happen, and it's normal. It's absolutely normal that stuff like that will happen. But yeah, it hasn't happened yet. I'm still coasting, so I'm feeling good. Let's see. What else? And yeah, I think that's it, to be totally honest. Thinking about maybe taking a vacation this winter. Sort of been dabbling and looking into it. At the moment, it's not looking most promising, however, for the dates that are available. I think we may have started looking a little too late. Um, but thinking of it, I haven't had a vacation in well, since 2019, actually, since as COVID was hitting, we went on that was the last vacation I went on. So yeah, it would be nice to go somewhere. I'm not particularly a sun destination guy, but I do enjoy. There's one destination I do particularly enjoy, so I would like to go back there. But yeah, we may have started our search a little too late. So, but we'll keep looking at it a little bit. Other than that, I am doing well, and I hope that you are too. We have a show for you today, kits and cubs. There has been a lot of stuff. There's enough content for 4 hours easily, which I'm not going to do to you. Don't worry. And I know there are a few of you out there, especially in the live chat, that would go, okay, yeah, sure, 4 hours. Don't worry, I could listen to you talk all day, which is very kind and very sweet. And I thank you. That's a lovely compliment, but I'm not going to do that to you. But there's a lot of things that have happened yesterday that all came to, well, not say came to head, but that there have been developments or movements on, and there's been other stuff over the past couple of days. Doug Ford wants to come for your reward points if you live in Ontario, when which is really ironic given we're in an affordability crisis and he ran on protecting Ontario. So, but yeah, apparently your food points, optimum points, uh, air miles, whatever. I'm not sure if that's going to apply to Aeroplan and stuff like that because that will cause a real uproar. Um, but yeah, he wants to come after those. He wants those to expire. The Liberals under Kathleen Wynne had passed a law expressly stating that those they can't come for those. You've earned those; those are yours. You can even like pass them down in your will and stuff like that. But Doug Ford appears to want to give a gift to someone. There's no reason to do that. Nobody asked for this in the general public. There's nobody that's collecting points that says, "Hey, that thing that I was saving for that costs a gazillion points." And I've been saving all these points for all these years and, you know, never actually redeemed any. Yeah, just come and take all those now, right? It's, nobody's calling for this. So, um, there you go. You got stuff like that happen. There's the whole skills development thing. Uh, there's another new scandal that's come out. I have no idea what it's about yet because I haven't had time to look about it. But I look at it. But I've saw the name of it for the first time this morning. I can't even remember it off the top of my head. I would have to go looking for it to see if I can find it. But yeah, a lot going on in Ontario. Um, we have the Algoma Steel thing, which we will talk about also, but 1,000 layoffs announced there, which is about a third of Algoma's workforce, which is quite um, a large number for the community of Sault Ste. Marie and the larger community around it to try to absorb. and some people outright stating that the community is just not big enough to be able to absorb that kind of hit. So that changes. Um, that changes a lot overnight in one area of the country. Um, there's there was an NDP leadership debate that took place. We won't have time to go into that today, but that did happen, and there is one thing about that I am going to about the race that I am going to bring to you today, however, and it comes courtesy of Rachel Gilmore, and this one. Um, because it's actually it's a good news story. It's a story about the best of us, and we can use some of that. So I'll show you something about that today. So I'll just put a note here because as I was talking about it, it just came to mind, and I didn't have it in my notes. So there we go, and that will hopefully remind me to actually post it to play it for you, because sometimes I get going on these episodes and I say I'm going to do something, and then I go back and I watch it and go, oh my god, darn, I forgot to do that, or I didn't get back to that. So that happened. Then we have everything with the pipeline MOU going on and unfurling, and we'll get into that. Um, there is, and there's more. I'm sure there is stuff that I am forgetting that goes on with this. Um, there's yeah, oh yeah, there is so much. There's also in Manitoba, that Premier Wab Canoe has confirmed that the search for the Brady Road landfill for Tanya Nipanak and Ashley Singoose also, if you remember the stories that were circulating in the news over the past while, referred to as Buffalo Woman uh, when her identity was not known. But that search has commenced. So that is some a long time coming and much needed. Uh, and I'm personally very glad that it's happening. So hopefully, their families will soon have an opportunity to have closure and begin the path to finding some peace. Um, we also have a bit of a cabinet shuffle, mini one that happened given that Steven Guilbeault left. Positions needed to be filled. Mark Miller returns to the cabinet as Minister of Canadian Identity and Culture and Minister responsible for official languages. Environment and Climate Change Minister Julie DeBruzen adds the nature portfolio back to hers because Stephen Guilbeault had been left to that with regard to when they moved him to his new position so that he would still have something green to be able to address because that is his passion. But as Minister of Canadian Identity, Steven Guilbeault had an absolutely exceptional reputation within the cultural communities for being someone that was very present, very active, very engaged. As much as we've been hard on him on this show, particularly when he was Minister of Environment, for not having the communication skills to communicate what he needed to. And he did have them in French, but he didn't have them in English, unfortunately. And um, the way that it was explained to me, the antagonism between Danielle Smith and Steven Guilbeault because she made him his target really stemmed from the fact is as you can see, he stepped down from cabinet out of principle with this MOU. So if he was the point person for negotiating with her on anything, and he's just not receptive to one whatsoever, how that can be. Trust me, I'm not trying to make any apology for Daniel Smith. Her behavior is still hers to own after that. But you can see how that would be a frustrating experience. Now, that she would be frustrated is human. What she decided to do with that frustration, there's some issues of discernment and judgment involved there, let's just say. But essentially, uh, she was negotiating with a brick wall. So, I mean, I guess she must have figured out what it's like to be negotiating with herself. So, yes, she's glad he's gone. There's actually been, there's a little bit of cheering in that sector of the political spectrum. Uh, on the liberal side, very interestingly, because he didn't step away from caucus, so maybe that changed things as well, because it's not the same thing as Genereux, who's just quitting politics together. D'Entremont crossed the floor. But the response, again, there's a contrast with the conservatives, with John Trumont. He's a rat and a this and a that and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, a lot of people for Steven Guilbeault, he's a friend of mine, have a lot of respect for him. Understand this must be really difficult for him, that type of stuff. I'm sure he's going to be an excellent contributing member still. That type of stuff. Just completely different tone than what we saw. And now, of course, the offense is not as grave, but still, this is it's not stuff on budget or whatnot, but it's still a signature piece of policy or process, if you want, that has been achieved here. And, it's too much. Steven Guilbeault was on the French show Tout le monde en parle, which is, almost must see TV, public affairs and TV, in the province of Quebec. For those who don't know it, it's one of the highest rated shows in the province. So it's a rendezvous pretty much for the whole province, and everybody talks about it. It's water cooler talk the next day, all the time. And Steven Guilbeault appeared, and he was choked up. He was very emotional. The host asking him at one point, with regard to the cultural communities, does it feel like you're abandoning, you know, abandoning culture, abandoning? And he's sitting there, and he's going, considering the trade-off I would have had to make, or the compromise, in order to retain the ability to keep doing for these cultural communities, these things that I was doing, these things that I really cared about, and there was so much more that I wanted to do with them. And you could see he was very emotional. He was choking up. Um, you know, yeah, it does feel like I'm abandoning. It's like this is my role as MP. I'm still going to be an ally, and I'll be there whenever they call. But yes, it does feel like I'm abandoning them. But the price to pay to be able to retain that and retain that privilege, right, was too high, was too great. So it really was a matter of principle for him. Um, you know, uh, but I have to say, I have to give him his props, as much as I didn't think he was effective. And even that's not fair, because I mean he did manage to get all this legislation passed, and and written and all that kind of stuff, and advocate for it, and get his cabinet behind it and the prime minister behind it. He did a lot of things. It's not that he has been totally ineffective. It's more his communications, and particularly in English. Um, but in the role as Minister of Canadian Identity, um, he had that down pat, and he was the right guy for that type of job. So in that sense, he found his place. He found a place in cabinet, where all of his skills uh, would best be served, and I guess a file that he could be passionate about, uh, but maybe not as much as an activist about, which um, suited all his skills and his abilities and made him very valuable. And he was also the Quebec lieutenant, of course. He's very respected in the province, and he's very respected by his peers. Um, except, of course, the conservatives, of course. But Elizabeth May likes him. People in the NDP like him. Um, so people in the bloc have nice things to say about him. Um, so he's it is a significant uh, loss. And like I said, we have been hard on him. And, we've even had a show, an end of year show, where we recommended that he be shuffled out of cabinet because he just wasn't cutting it. I said, like, he may have like all the technical expertise and all that type of stuff and the network of connections to be the person behind the scenes helping, but he can't be the front man. He's just not the salesman for it. But yeah, he is, Julie DeBruzen will take on the nature portfolio, and then Joel Lightbound, who's from the Quebec City area in the province of Quebec, uh, will now take on the role of the Quebec lieutenant. And uh, he's he seems very, very happy to be able to be taking on that challenge, and he too has a good reputation and is very well liked. So you know, like I said, not a big shuffle, obviously, but the three things that Steven Guilbeault had has been have been split among three different people here. The return of Mark Miller, a lot of people might be interpreting that as giving a sign to the the Trudeau legacy that sort of came because Mark Miller was a very personal, close friend of Mr. Trudeau, and he was left out of cabinet, and now he's back out again, back in again. A sign that they are not completely on the outs because you have Chrystia Freeland probably leaving soon. You might have Mr. Guilbeault after a while deciding he's leaving. Jonathan Wilkinson, there's talk about him maybe leaving. There's been rumors going about Melanie Joly possibly becoming the new ambassador to France. Um, right? Wilkinson might also be ambassador to the UK. So there would be a the whole talk of sort of like every new leader wants to work with his team, and slowly there's a purge of the Trudeau sort of era, in an orderly fashion. And then, with by-elections and whatnot, opportunities to bring in members of his team, other sort of Tim Hodgson-like people that Mark Carney has maybe met along the way, and wants to bring them in so that he can run things his way, right? So bringing a Mark Miller in might send a sign that no, there's no purge here, right? It's just I'm just trying to run things effectively and efficiently, and there's nothing going on there. Um, I don't know whether that is the case. I don't have enough information whatsoever about any palace intrigue on that front, but some people are in the punditry are interpreting his return to cabinet as potentially being that sending that type of signal to his caucus. I'm not trying to like totally erase everything Trudeau from the legacy. But yeah, those three things, that little shuffle has happened, and that's what the team we're going to be going forward with. These changes were pretty well received overall, and potentially Mark Miller as well, as you know, because he speaks English and French quite fluently. But also um, speaks an indigenous language. I believe it is Mohawk, if I'm not mistaken, but has taken the time and the effort to make to learn an indigenous language. Perhaps it brings someone else on the team as well that might help navigate certain protocol issues with the indigenous community, because they seem to have a habit of stepping in it. For whatever good intentions they keep saying that they have, and how many times that they say, it's not going to be done unless that there's indigenous partnership, and seem to, without saying that there's a veto, seem to be saying like you really need to get it because we're not going to move forward without it. You still have things like, doing that C5 process without bringing indigenous people in early on. You have this memorandum with Alberta, which I understand again, like in a whole sort of North American boardroom process, it makes complete sense to negotiate something with the party you're having the most difficulty with and make that agreement, and then go to all other parties and say, this is what we're working. This is the starting point that we're working from here. Okay, How does this or not happen or not? Right? I can understand that, very if you have a very Cartesian mind and step by step and process oriented, that how you would put that there and you say it's not time for them yet. But there's a whole layer of intangible around this that seems to indicate the earlier you do this, the better. Like participative management from second one all the time might be the best way to go. And I just don't understand how they're not picking this up. And then you get that sort of flippant comment from Tim Hodgson, who really should know better given his background and his alleged success with working with indigenous communities to bring them on board to make projects and deals, to say, we can just Zoom. That's what Zoom's for when we're talking about negotiating nation to nation and asking for something to cross their territory, something that, and in the case of the coastal nations, something that they have said for 50 years or so, since 1972 and a little before, because the moratorium was only formalized in 72, but they were probably talking about it before it to get there, right? So over 50, 60 years saying, no, we do not want this. Maybe, uh, maybe that's the type of stakeholder and rights holder that you would want to make a point of seeing in person. So we can Zoom as a first instinct, um, probably not the smartest one. And someone pointed out, now I'm not sure if this is the situation for these nations in question, but somebody did make the point. You know, it's in a reality where not everyone is still up to standard when it comes to potable water. We're assuming broadband, right? um, so yeah, um, and at a capacity, that makes these types of negotiations and these types of discussions somewhat um, tolerable to have in a format. I mean, it works in an absolute pinch, but it shouldn't be your um, plan A. Let me say that way. So, um, maybe having Mark Miller around the table bring a little more sensitivity to these types of things. It certainly can't hurt. Now, of course, everything depends on who's listened to once they're around the table. But surely it may not hurt to have someone who actually took the time and made the effort to learn an indigenous language to get their opinion on. Uh, if we do this thing this way, will we make people mad? Because maybe we would like to start this thing off without making people mad from the get go next time. Perhaps, maybe. You might want to consider it. Just saying. Okay. Uh, gee. So, and then, of course, yesterday, as I mentioned, was World AIDS Day. And I said that I would look into a couple of little things to see about the situation in Canada. And I found this report from City TV, is it, or City News, that has a good take on it here. And I have it open because I did have it open a couple seconds ago. Oh, there it is. Okay, so yes, it was with the so not City, sorry. It was a CP24, and whoops, this is not the same one. Okay, but sure, this will be good. Nope, sorry, kids and cups. I'm so sorry. I have no idea where the thing I had went to, and that is very weird indeed because it was literally just on my screen. Okay, weird. Um, there you go. Yep, yeah. Sorry, kits and cups. My bad. Um, it I can't explain in words what happened, but I found it. I wasn't insane. I did indeed have it on my screen. Okay, so this is a discussion with Sean Hossein about current rates of HIV in Canada, and we will present this. Okay, everything's set up. I had this in my head. I was planning to go much more smoothly, but here we go.
As we mark World AIDS Day, new HIV surveillance numbers show rates here in Manitoba are on the rise. Joining me now to talk more about the latest statistics and what they mean is Sean Hossein, Science and Medicine Editor at CATI, Canada's source for HIV and hepatitis C information. Sean, good to speak with you.
Good afternoon.
These new surveillance figures from the Public Health Agency of Canada reflect information collected in 2024. What does this information tell us?
Well, it tells us that there are 65,000, just over 65,000 Canadians living with HIV today, and about 11% or 7,050 are undiagnosed. That is, they have HIV, but they aren't aware of it. And, between, I think in 2022, there were 48 or 1,848 new transmissions of HIV. So HIV infections continuing in Manitoba, the situation is quite bad. It's got the highest rate of infections in all of Canada, and we need to do more.
Yeah, Manitoba was the only province to report a higher diagnosis rate in 2024. This is pretty concerning.
Yeah, I mean, it's both good and bad, right? It's good. More people are being diagnosed. That means they're being tested and they're hopefully getting into care and treatment. Because with treatment, if it's taken every day or taken exactly as directed, people can get healthier because their virus is suppressed and they can live, all other things being equal, a long, healthy life. But also treatment, when used as directed, suppresses the virus and it stops the spread of the virus. Like the person can't further spread the virus. So that's great news.
Moving forward, what do you think needs to be done, as far as prevention, testing, and treatment?
That's a great question. I think we need to do more on testing. Many people don't think they're at risk for HIV. They may have been exposed in the past. They aren't aware of it. And I would like for every sexually active person to get tested. The reason is you can get tested at a pharmacy, you can get tested from a nurse practitioner, a doctor, a clinic, wherever. But you get tested and you get the result, and this is good because if you're negative, you ask your healthcare provider, well, what other steps can I take to stay negative? And if you're positive, you ask your healthcare provider, can I start medication as soon as possible? And that's good because it keeps you healthy. Medication today for HIV is really simple. It's one pill once a day or an injection every 2 months or so. So there are lots of options and they're well tolerated.
Well, Sean, I want to thank you for your time tonight and the insight on World AIDS Day. It was great speaking with you.
Thanks very much.
So there you have it, kids and cubs. 5,000 Canadians living with HIV, 1,800 new infections last year for about a 15% increase. In terms of new diagnoses, at least. If more people are being diagnosed, that is indeed a good thing in order to be able to get them the assistance that they need. So, as we mentioned yesterday on the show, kids and cubs, if you are living with HIV, if you think you might be at risk because what you've done. So if you may have been at risk or not, or not necessarily what you've done, but what situations you've been in, what's happened to you, because there are ways to get to HIV as well that unfortunately do not involve you having to do anything to get it. You just being at the wrong place at the wrong time, needle pricks and that type of stuff. So, but if you think that you are at risk, or that you may be at risk, it is better to know than to not know. And early intervention is key to having as long a life expectancy as possible and as normal a life expectancy as possible. So there are resources out there to help people with costs and with access. So please, if you know anyone, or if you yourself, or if you're wondering, you don't know, do go get tested. It is better to know than to not know, and it's and it is uh, also good to know that you are not transmitting it, because again, there are medications out there, but they are expensive, and while they are well tolerated, they do change your life. They do change your life. So it's something. It's an illness that is completely avoidable with some care. And but if you do have it, it's also a disease. Unlike back in the day, is no longer an automatic death sentence. Right? It's a disease that can be managed, and it. There are still there's still stigma around associated with it and that kind of stuff, and it's tough. It's definitely not easy, but it gets better. It gets better. So if you, a lot of people don't get tested because they're afraid of it, of finding out and afraid of it being real. But it is better to know than to not know. Right. So I encourage everyone. And as the doctor, as the person said there, I'm not sure, I can't remember if the person is a doctor, but if you are sexually active, you probably should get tested and know and find out on a regular basis, because you just never know. You just never know. All right, kids and cubs. Also on that front, there's been some interesting news that I missed, that I heard on the radio, and I thought, hey, wait a minute, that seems odd. But in September, it was announced that the AIDS Committee of Toronto, which began in 1983, is closing its doors after 42 years, according to Hannah Alberga of the Canadian Press. An organization that bills itself as Canada's oldest HIV service agency says it will close next year, in part due to groundbreaking medical advances that have reduced the need for its services. AIDS Committee of Toronto said plummeting demand coincided with financial challenges and broader changes in the healthcare system, leading to a decision to close after 42 years. ACT, AIDS Committee of Toronto, was founded in 1983 when AIDS was marked by stigma, long-term illness, and often death. New treatment and prevention measures mean people with HIV now live longer and fuller lives, with a third of ACT service users over the age of 55. Executive Director Ryan Lisk says it's time to pass the torch to organizations that better serve current needs, with paramount issues including access to affordable medications and help managing HIV as a chronic disease. Quote, "It felt like it's the right time for us to take a step back," Lisk said in an interview. He said organizations that have in-house HIV and sexually transmitted infection testing, as well as mental health and social services, are better equipped to serve their clients. One of those organizations is HQ Health Club in Toronto, where Executive Director Devin Kevin Woodward said HIV is managed as a chronic disease with daily medication. Quote, "However, there's still lots of needs that are out there in terms of access to care, access to medications, making sure that newcomers who come into Canada who may be living with HIV are connected to care as soon as possible," Woodward said. "There's a lot of challenges that still exist." He said incorporating mental health and social supports for this aging population has become a key focus at HQ Health Hub. Quote, "We have a population of folks who are getting older, who are what we call long-term survivors that have gone through a lot of trauma," Woodward said. Lisk says the pool of federal, provincial, and municipal funding for HIV organizations has essentially remained the same over the past 4 decades, and that donations have also declined. Act says it's raised $3.6 million through donations and fundraising back in 2003, but in 2025 it is projected to raise less than $300,000. Funding was affected by the COVID-19 and increased cost of living, Lisk said. Quote, "We saw significant change after COVID. The economy has been difficult. I think most nonprofit organizations in 2025 are struggling for donations." Canada saw a 35% jump in HIV cases in 2023 compared to a year before, according to Statistics Canada. Despite the uptick in new infections, particularly affecting marginalized communities, Lisk says there's been a decline in public awareness of the disease. Quote, "HIV isn't on the radar the way it was in the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s. The closure of ACT underlines urgent gaps in funding," Shamin Mohammed Jr., founder and president of Let's Stop AIDS, Canada's largest youth-led HIV charity, told CBC News. Quote, "It's a heartbreaking moment for Canada. Being someone who got involved with the HIV epidemic at 15, I can say that we need more movements like this," Mohammed said. "Canada has the highest rate of new HIV infections of any G7 country," Mohammed said. Quote, "HIV is silently in our communities across Canada," he said. "Now is not the time to decrease our support for community-led initiatives." So yeah, interesting. Highest rate of HIV infections, and then you hear the doctors or the person from Katie, the Canadian AIDS Treatment Information Exchange, stating that this is positive because if we know about the infections, they can be treated. Uh, but um, hopefully, we're having a higher rate of HIV infections because people are choosing to go get tested that weren't going tested before, and not because uh, overall transmission rates are increasing. So, but yeah, it's interesting. It's really interesting from my perspective. You know, who's been alive for the whole crisis and seen it go through our community to um, to be at a point to see the AIDS Committee of Toronto go out of business because I mean, uh, technically, when you know the AIDS Committee of Toronto started up, its goal was to put itself out of business, right? To make it such that AIDS was so controlled or wasn't spreading anymore to a point where their services would not be needed, and they're kind of there in a way, um, but it's not. There's still an undercurrent of problem. They're just not the organization to be handling it anymore because the way that the virus transmits now is different. I mean, it's still the same, the same ways, but I mean, the population groups through which it is it is going are different than the ones it has traditionally served and has the most expertise in serving. And there's just not the resources anymore, considering the higher cost of living and everything. So yeah, it's um it's like part of me is happy that the spread is down to a point uh, where an organization like this would no longer have enough business to keep itself going. But hearing at the same time that it went up 35% in 2023, and now that's at 15% from that. Um, that doesn't make me feel good. And when I read that quote that says, HIV isn't on the radar the way it was in the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s, that's true. I only hear talk about it once a year now, right? When it's World AIDS Day, and even then, it doesn't get high level coverage as it used to. So, yeah, I hope it's a situation though where our programs do keep on being effective rather than we are taking our eye off the ball and opening up another window for another wave of infections, because that would not be a good thing. All right, so um, we've dealt with some of the issues that we had on our list for the day. Just going to go and check the agenda to make sure I'm not missing anything here. So we have PM Carney Jiggles' cabinet following the departure of Steven Guilbeault. We did that. And okay, yes, Algoma Steel and the pipeline stuff. All right, let's do the Algoma Steel stuff first because that was some pretty big news. The federal government and the government of Ontario recently, wasn't that long ago, had announced that they were giving $500 million, $500 million. I believe it was in loan guarantees to Algoma Steel. It was to help them get through the period that was very difficult given the high steel taxes imposed by the United States. And it was also to help them move away from the blast furnace and to electrify their process for steelmaking, which would make it much greener because, well, one, you want the industry to be more competitive. But it turns out since then, I found out that it would seem that the carbon border adjustment mechanisms in European Union will be starting to come into effect. So if Canada wants to diversify its steel to send more towards Europe, for example, then we have to make sure that the steel is produced in such a way that it could probably meet that requirement. So if we're going to be sending it to Europe. So this loan was given. Unfortunately, it appears that sorry, I have something incorrect has just popped up on my screen here. I'm so sorry, kids and cubs. So yes, they are going to switch to what is called an electric arc furnace. Now, Kid Elaine sent me something from March 2025 that I guess some people didn't remember when this announcement was made, but this is going to suetoday.com. It says here it's credited to Village Media here. And this is from March. In a few weeks, Algoma Steel will strike the first heat at one of its new electric arc furnaces, a major milestone in the company's year-long transition to greener production. There's still plenty of work to be done on the $875 million project, but by 2029, when both EAFs are expected to be fully operational, Algoma Steel will no longer need its number 7 blast furnace or coke ovens, a transformation that will boost production capacity and slash carbon emissions by up to 70%. The state-of-the-art technology will also usher in another big change at the plant, a much smaller workforce. The company has been honest about the fact that Algoma Steel will require approximately 1,000 fewer employees when both electric arc furnaces are up and running. The current workforce is close to 2,700, but will drop to roughly 1,700 by 2029. That's one of the most sobering parts of this transformation, said Michael Garcia, the CEO of Algoma Steel, during a wide-ranging interview on our Inside the Village podcast. Quote, we've tried to be open with our employees from the very beginning, helping them understand what this means, what the journey looks like, and some idea of the time frame that these moves will be made in. Although the plant expects some attrition will come through retirements, job cuts are inevitable. Quote, if we had to do this entire reduction next week, we know exactly who would be affected based on the exact seniority and service of every individual, Garcia said. But that's every individual today. So if we do it a year and a half from now, the population is going to be slightly different. So it will be a little different answer. Most employees at the plant are represented by two unions, United Steelworkers Local 2251 and 2724. Quote, there's a lot of language in the collective bargaining agreements as to how these reductions will be made, Garcia said. If you're an employee in the union in a job that's being eliminated, it says in the contract exactly what rights you may have to move and to use your seniority to bid into another job or move into another job. We're experienced in how to do that, so we'll have to do that. Garcia was asked what message he has for concerned workers who might be listening to the podcast. Quote, you can talk to your leadership now and you can get a very good picture, a very good understanding right now based on how long you've been with the company, how much seniority, and what our future headcount is, he said. I can assure you can be given a very good indication of whether you will have a job when we are a 1,700 or 1,800 employee company. He said his goal is to manage the cuts with, quote, openness, respect, and caring for everybody involved. Quote, I don't look at an employee and say, oh, wow, he or she is going to be gone in 2 years, so I don't need to give them quite as much of my attention or I don't need to worry about them, he said. We're a family and everybody in Algoma Steel is a full, valuable member of the team right now, and they'll continue to be that way until the day that they're not on the team. And unfortunately, we're going to be a smaller team in the future, but we're going to be a sustainable company and we're going to be here for decades and decades. So in March 2025, it was announced that there would be 1,000 fewer employees needed, which is greater than a third of the workforce, once the 2 electric arc furnaces were put into place. Well, yesterday, Algoma Steel has announced that due to what is happening with the tariffs in the United States, that it is going to move up the date at which it's going to switch its second, to bring in the second electric apparatus, which means those 1,000 layoffs are going to be happening way earlier than about 2029. According to Donald and Corey Nordstrom of CTV, reeling from high tariffs imposed by U.S. President Donald Trump, Algoma Steel confirmed Monday it has issued layoff notices to about 1,000 workers. The company, based in Sault Sainte-Marie, Ontario, employs about 2,700 people with its major buyers in the United States. The company was hit hard by the 50% tariffs imposed last summer by Trump. The North American steel market is highly integrated, and Algoma Steel has been significantly impacted by the unprecedented tariffs imposed by the United States, Algoma Steel spokesperson Laura Devoni said in an email. Quote, these tariffs have fundamentally altered the competitive landscape and sharply limited our ability to access the U.S. market. As a result of these pressures, Algoma has been forced to conclude its long history as an integrated steel manufacturer and close its blast furnace and coke-making operations in early 2026. Devoni said the tariffs are forcing the company to transition to its electric arc furnace steelmaking a year earlier than previously planned. Quote, as part of the closure of its blast furnace and coke-making operations, Algoma has made the difficult decision to issue approximately 1,000 layoff notices today, effective in 16 weeks on March 23, 2026, she said. This transition is necessary to protect Algoma's future in the face of these extraordinary and external market forces, and we will continue to advocate for a competitive and fair trading environment for Canadian steel. In September, it was announced that the steelmaker would receive $500 million in federal and provincial loan assistance to help reorient its business to cope with the impact of U.S. tariffs. The $400 million from the federal government will come from the Large Enterprise Tariff Loan Program, with the province providing $100 million. Bill Slater, president of United Steelworkers Local 27-2024, said Monday's announcement was, quote, devastating. Sitting around the Christmas table knowing that your job is coming to an end will not be a fun thing to do, Slater told CTV News. Now that this announcement has been made, hopefully the government will move forward on approving the funding for those programs. We're hoping to have an action center set up here in the Sioux by the end of January to support the workers when they're laid off at the end of March. It's very devastating when you live in a community that doesn't have a lot of job opportunities and you're finding out that your job is going to end, he added. Ontario Trade Minister Vic Fideli said the province will act to help workers. Quote, we are activating a local power, Protect Ontario Workers Employment Response Center to provide enhanced supports for impacted workers, including retraining programs to get people into new jobs as quickly as possible, Fideli said in a statement. Quote, our Buy Ontario Act is prioritizing Ontario inputs for government procurement, including Ontario Steel. Recent federal government changes to tariff rate quota levels for steel will help ensure Canadian companies use more Canadian steel. He called on the federal government to speed up procurement to use Ontario Steel to build pipelines, critical infrastructure, ships, and other military and defense equipment. Sault Sainte-Marie Algoma MP Terry Sheehan said he is working to ensure help for the affected workers. Quote, I am in contact with the federal government departments and agencies that will directly respond to the needs of impacted workers and expedite any federal services required during these difficult times. Our new government has already taken significant steps to strengthen protections and increase assistance for workers impacted by layoffs. I will continue to fight tirelessly for you, your families, and our community during these challenging times. Algoma said Monday the layoffs will help ensure the company is viable in the longer term. In the short term, their focus will be on helping the affected employees. Quote, we fully understand how unsettling this news is for our employees, their families, and the broader Sault Sainte-Marie community, Devoni said. We are committed to working closely with federal and provincial partners, union leadership, and community agencies over the coming months to provide resources, support, and transition assistance to all affected employees. So, they're moving the date up, and therefore those 1,000 employees will be out of a job much sooner than they thought they would be. I had a clip here somewhere for you. The government made a statement with regard to Algoma. Yeah. Sorry. I'm a little mixed up in my notes here. Yes. Government of Canada made a statement. Okay, I'll have to find that for you here. But with regard to Algoma, what we have here is the company perspective. And there was an interview yesterday on Power Play, CTV Power Play, with Vashti Kapelos, that has a bit of the union perspective. And one of the key criticisms that the union has of the government for the way that it arranged its loan to the company, and I guess some caution or advice for how it is if there's going to be future help, that the government should proceed when it is handing it out this time around. So here it is for you, kits and.
If I could just follow up, just to be clear. So I think if I interpret this correctly, so the government at different points has offered financial assistance and not attached that assistance in any way to ensuring that there aren't layoffs.
Absolutely. And there may not have been no layoffs, but certainly there should be conditions where work that needs to be performed could be performed by the workers. That's the commitment in the collective agreement.
And we reached out to the government to get their response, because it's not just there's been previous financial assistance, but there's very recently a substantial amount of money that the government, both in Ontario and the federal government, have agreed to loan Algoma. We reached out to get a minister on. Nobody was available from either government, unfortunately. What is your message to those governments tonight, following this news?
Well, they should recognize that we are taxpayers, and it doesn't matter which party we support. We are their citizens, and they should be at least taking care of us. We're not asking them to find us jobs, but what we do want is for them to attach conditions to funding that says common sense needs to prevail and the workers need to be considered irrespective of what's happening with the company. We're not asking for handouts, but we're asking, our workers have brought this company back from CCAA 3 times now. So we should be recognized by the government for attempting to keep the economy going. And at a minimum, they should have said, what are your mitigation strategies to ensure that these people are either retrained to work elsewhere or retrained to work at Algoma? None of that has happened.
Are there any mitigation strategies in place? Like, is there any efforts that you can recognize on the part of the company in that vein?
Well, the mitigation strategy were to be create a transitional trades helper program, enhanced and extended training opportunities and considerations, obtaining DZ license for operating heavy equipment, stationary engineers, vibration analysis, etc., extend training periods, leave of absence to attend educational programs. None of that has occurred. And in fact, they're saying that has expired. The company has had some discussions with agencies such as CSTEC and Employment Insurance Canada, but again, none of those can start until someone is actually laid off.
And so that isn't supposed, the full layoff doesn't take effect until March. Is that accurate?
That's correct.
And I wondered if you could speak for a moment, because my understanding is this is a big chunk of the workforce in Sault Sainte-Marie. How substantial, from your viewpoint, is this to the overall operations there?
Well, you're talking 900 people. This city cannot provide employment for 900 additional job seekers. So there's either going to have to be out migration, or people are going to be left without jobs and without income. There's opportunities in the mines, but I understand that there's been a lot of applications, which means that openings are limited, even if there are any left. So for the community, it's going to be a significant impact.
Has there been any outreach from any politician at any level to your union?
Terry Sheehan contacted me yesterday. He's our Liberal MP, and he said that he was going to raise issues about CSTEC and employment insurance, etc. But the reality is that the mitigation strategies should have been tied to the funding, and the government should have stated, you need to start implementing them now. It's too late if you wait until March. People will then be laid off.
Okay, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you so much, Mr. DePratt. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
We are going to take a quick break. We're going to unpack what you just heard and the political consequences of these layoffs with our...
All right, kits and cubs. So there, you can see here some upset that there seemed to be nothing in those loans that had any tie to, or there was no string attached that had anything to do with taking care of workers. Like, for example, we're giving you $500 million in loans, and maybe you want to take $10 million aside and leave it in a pot. So in case you have to fire people, you can take care of them for a good long while. Maybe. Right? So yeah, I can understand. I can completely understand, especially like I said, there's 3 times that they intervened to try to help save the company, and for them to not then be regarded in that way, that there seems to be nothing for them, and that nobody planned for them. Yeah, that hits. That would hit. I can understand why they turn around and say, the next time that you're going to, lend them some money or make them some loan guarantees or whatnot, could you kind of make sure that they take care of us too? Because that would be nice. I tell you, kits and cubs. So there was a official government reaction to what was stated and to the situation here, because Algoma, of course, had to make their statement. And again, something, my God, everything on this computer is super weird today. Kids and cubs, there are things happening as I'm looking for clips that don't happen ever. and they are happening today, and it is very strange and very weird, and it's for throwing me for a couple of loops today. I won't lie, but we're getting through. Um, I had this whole thing laid out, and it was supposed to happen smooth and seamlessly. And well, yeah. Anyway, oh, this is the statement of the government of Canada, official statement based on what was the news of the day from the Algoma Steel.
Track the news out of Sault Sainte-Marie, 1,000 layoff notices issued by Algoma Steel, about a third of the company's workforce there. Certainly a statement from the federal jobs minister that says in part the federal government is standing with Algoma Steel workers and with Canada's steel sector. The situation, Minister Patty Hadu writes, is serious. Global markets are shifting quickly, and relying too heavily on a single trading partner has left our industry exposed. She writes, we are working hard to shore up domestic production and make sure workers have real immediate support. Of course, the union leader we spoke to earlier on is asking the government to offer more conditions on any financial support to the company. We'll leave Power Play there. Lots more reaction coming up on CTV News Channel. Thanks for watching.
So there you go, kits and cubs. The official statement from the government of Canada through Minister Haidu. With regard to this as well, there's an economist named Peter Warrion who was, I believe, was being interviewed by CBC, if I'm not mistaken, and had some very interesting things to say, surprisingly, about the economics of the whole thing. But yeah, wanted to bring this to you, kits and cubs, because some particularly good insights to help understand the overall scope of the problem, and to get a sense of some of the nuances that need to be taken into account when you're forming your opinions about what it is that is going on here, because not very many of us are experts in this field. So, kits and cubs, without any further ado, this is an exchange with economist Peter Warrion on CBC to the situation at Algoma Steel.
For more on this, we're joined by economist Peter Warrion. He is a senior research fellow at the Munk School of Global Affairs and a former research director with the United Steelworkers. He was also the chief economist of the province of Ontario. Peter, I appreciate you taking the time. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
So how expected were these layoffs, though, given what we know about demand for Canadian steel and this transition to these new furnaces?
Well, the transition and the tariffs are sort of linked,
okay,
in the sense that you've had the story before that Algoma is in the lead of moving away from these blast furnaces to electric furnaces for environmental reasons. That's a good thing. But inevitably, there'll be job losses, but you could adjust to those through retirements, retraining, such over time. They're now having to do that with a gun to their head because of the tariffs. And I don't have the company's books in front of me, but they've got declining revenues because of the tariffs. So now you're having to do what you might have had a year or two to do, and you got a matter of months. I would say that there's going to be a second bounce also on the tariff front. In the new year, the European, it's a carbon tariff, the common border adjustment, i.e. if you have environmental standards that are poorer on steel than domestic producers, you'll have to pay a tariff. I think that's actually justified, because you can't expect our companies and communities to take these costs and somebody else gets a free ride. There are other countries, China, but there's more than China, that have very poor environmental standards. So if we're going through, including the taxpayers' money, to do this transition, then we should get relief. So right now, I think things they've been talking about doing, they're going to have to do with a gun to their head.
Let me ask you,
But also
Peter.
the rule,
Oh, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
but also January 1, the rules are going to change, and that could be a second bounce on this.
And then, Peter, I wanted to just ask you what we just heard from the opposition leader, the Conservative leader, Pierre Poilievre, in the House of Commons. He said the industrial carbon tax will kill even more Canadian steel jobs. What's your thinking on that?
Well, I think that's a political statement that I'm not. I mean, the new system of getting these electric furnaces involved adjustments to carbon prices or prices embedded in steel products. So this is not new news that's part of it's not a political accusation. It's part of making that succeed. But that won't succeed unless other countries go to this carbon tax or a border adjustment method. That's different than just the general carbon tax debate.
Now, we also know that there was a $500 million loan that was given to, about federal and provincial, but mostly federal dollars, given to Algoma to try and, I guess, transition and to safeguard these jobs. So how can, what about that money in terms of trying to protect Canadian steelworker jobs?
Well, that was going into and has been going into doing this business of the furnaces, the technology, the electric furnaces coming in. It also, the government has also, because of the short-term cash crunch, because of the tariffs, loaned additional money. It's just that all of this is jammed into the same short-term box. That's why we're now in this position of having to deal with all of this with a gun to our head. I think the transition is right. Helping the communities and the steel companies do that adjustment is fine. But then we have the wild card of Mr. Trump. And then on the other side, we got the Europeans.
So, Peter, this sounds like a pretty bleak moment for Canadian steel workers. What's your thinking?
It's a very tough moment. You can't understand that. But when you look more broadly at what Mr. Carney is trying to do about infrastructure, defense, mining, and some of these things, those are very steel-intensive industries. So the midterm outlook for steel is reasonably good. But we live in the now, and it's getting there.
And so I see. All right. So you actually think that there are opportunities. Well, we just heard the defense minister, for instance, talking about this new opportunity to help rearm Europe, if you will. That could require Canadian steel, for instance.
Sure. Defense and infrastructure use a lot of plate steel. That exactly is that's center ice for Algoma Steel.
Peter, it was good of you to take the time to talk to us. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Peter Warrian joining us from Toronto.
So there you go, Kits and Cubs. A little view on economics and the pressures that are on the steel industry. Though, as I mentioned earlier in the show, the common border adjustment mechanism coming into effect as well on the European side. So lots of pressure to move in addition to what's going on with the United States. You have to excuse me, Kits and Cubs, if I sound a little congested while the video was going on. Just before we came back into screen, I sneezed a bit and hadn't had a time to blow my nose. So you got me all snub for a second. So yeah, again, like I said, just some little bit of information in that conversation with Mr. Warrian about some of the nuances and some context and some, when I talk about adding some color and texture to the conversation here to understand what it is that's going on and why there is more urgency on this particular file. And what other pressures there may be that sometimes the simple answer isn't going to do it for you because, you said that there are some complexities. The thing, there is one other thing I wanted to show to you about this, and it involves Lisa Raitt from, formerly of the Conservative Party, but in her pundit capacity and her financial expertise capacity, because I believe for a time after her, or she might be there presently, I think, with She's working with CIBC, if I'm not mistaken, at the moment. Yes. Uh, Vice Chair and Managing Director of Global Investment Banking for CIBC Capital Markets. So yeah, I remember that. So she knows what she's talking about on this particular subject. And she's talking about loan guarantees, which is what the government had offered Algoma Steel. And she offers a bit of a reality check on loan guarantees. Because they can do certain things, and then there's certain things that they can't do, right? Um, so this is also important context when the government says that they've offered help in the form of loan guarantees. What that looks like really in real life, and you will see a lot of other people on the panel nodding as she's speaking. So she's hitting the mark here.
You see also the sort of disproportionate impact on the sectors that are being punished, right? That aren't covered by CUSMA, that have these 232 tariffs, like steel, like autos. Yeah. Lisa, I heard you nodding when Tom said he'd been to the factory. Like, this is a third of the workforce in an area where, as the union representative on, like, as I was saying, he said, like, the community cannot absorb this. There aren't enough open jobs there. Even the ones at the mines, he said, are getting overrun by applications right now. Like, that is very consequential.
It is. And I lived through it in the 80s in Cape Breton. We lost the coal mines. We lost the steel plant. We lost the cod fishery. The island has never, ever recovered, like ever recovered. And we've had multiple amounts of government programming going in there. And it's devastating to watch a town like Sault Sainte-Marie go through the exact same thing. And this is where careless thoughts or careless words like, I don't care, from the Prime Minister is going to come back to haunt him, because those links are going to be made. They knew this was coming because we don't have a deal on steel. Loan guarantees are only helpful when the company knows they're actually going to have revenues to repay the loans. If you don't have revenues coming in, nobody's going to give you a loan, even if you have a government guarantee. That's what they're up against. And without having some kind of path forward on these steel tariffs, they're not going to have any kind of possibility of putting a business plan together to get the loans. So they need more. And I don't know what the government can possibly do. But I can tell you this, that whoever wrote those lines in question period today, they better go back to the drawing board, because they were completely unacceptable. To put the burden on the worker to have to chin up and get through it is ridiculous. This is a huge problem for our country. The Prime Minister has to stand up in the House and has to address it. This is the beginning, and people are scared, Vashi. This is going to be a crappy Christmas for a lot of people who are in these sectors in this country, because they're seeing the writing on the wall. And I just say, God bless you all. It's going to be tough.
So Lisa Raitt, with some not sugarcoating it here. And making the point about loan guarantees, right? If you need to see some light at the end of the tunnel because those loans need to be repaid at some point. And given that the United States seems to be rather non-committal about when or even if it wants to take any action on those tariffs in any way, shape, or form, any action other than raising them at some point later. What do you do? What do you do? What good's a loan guarantee in that situation? So some, like I said, very good points. Like I said, it's not that easy. Sometimes it's just writing a check or helping to tide someone over. There are other realities that come into play. All right, kits and cubs, moving from that, because I believe that is all I had on that bit for you. Just going to take a look through my notes. Oh, yes, on that, kits and cubs, if you I might look back into that and try to bring you that on another day. But if you see any interviews with the mayor of Sault Sainte-Marie, Mayor Schumacher, can't remember his first name off the top of my head here, Matthew Shoemaker. He is doing exceptional work and has been doing exceptional work throughout this. Pretty much every time I've seen him on TV throughout all of this, making an intervention throughout the year. He has been poised and calm and rational and not prone to hyperbole, but able to stress the importance of what is needed. Um, he's been doing a very, 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 very good job representing his community and advocating for it. And yeah, just wanted to give a shout out to him because he's facing some very difficult circumstances. I mean, imagine being the mayor of a town or city that is going to fire more than a third of its employees, and it is by far the largest employer in your area, and there aren't enough other employers that have enough jobs open to be able to absorb that number of workers. And Merry Christmas. This is what you get to deal with. That can't be that can't be welcome news for Mayor. That's I'm sure. How to put it? The possibility that stuff like that can happen is stuff that you sign up for when you choose to run to be a mayor. But we're not for Donald Trump deciding that we are somehow a national security threat to the United States. This would not be happening. So, like when he ran, I don't think anywhere in his mind in the realm of statistical possibility would be that the president of the United States decides to decimate our steel sector. I just, I can see him going home, and I did not sign up for this. So, yes, you did, but I didn't. The man is doing as best as he can under nearly impossible circumstances, but he has been managing to get himself on the national scene, in the national spotlight more than once over the course of the year. I've seen him consistently throughout the year on this issue, bringing it back, doing the follow-ups, and every time that same composure and poise and able to stress the strong points. He is if you live in Sault Ste. Marie, I know that the situation may be tough, and often when situations are tough, we take it out on the politicians. But he is representing well. He is representing well. You've chosen well. You have a fighter in your corner here. Okay. I believe that that's all I have on the Algoma thing now. I just wanted to make a note of that because I remember being very impressed with him. Some additional news about how it is that we are moving or trying to take a sidestep from the United States. It was announced yesterday. I saw it from our good friend Olga Nestorova from one. Oh my God, what is this? I am having a very interesting day today. Oh my God. Sorry, kids and cubs. That's just really weird. Okay. Yes, our good friend Olga Nestorova said I saw it on her feed first, stating that Canada has finalized the deal to join the European Military Procurement Program, or the SAFE initiative, that we reported about early on in Mark Carney's tenure, which aims to significantly boost the defense readiness of EU member states by providing up to 150 billion euros in long maturity loans for urgent defense investments. And um, Government of Canada has committed to create a defense investment agency to lead our participation in the program. This was one of the agencies that the federal government had announced to go along with Build Canada Homes and to go along with the Major Projects Office. The third one was the Defense Investment Agency. As you remember, I think early on in his prime ministership, Prime Minister Mark Carney had gone to the EU, and there was those big deals signed with the EU, and that was looking. They were looking to shore up their military and create this big pool of money for loan guarantees and whatnot, so that they can take over a little bit more of their defense, considering what's been going on with NATO. And Canada has been brought in as a full partner in this, which gives us access to be a player and a competitor, and to help bid for some of these contracts, which is a inherent part of Prime Minister Mark Carney's strategy to focus on manufacturing, in particular manufacturing in the defense sector for the years to come, especially with the whole world doing the 5% with NATO. But again, Europe trying to make sure that it's taking care of its own affairs too, given that the United States is taking a step back. So some good news for us with regard to that. And let's see if there is anything additional in that news with regard to this deal. According to the Government of Canada, from the Prime Minister's website itself, it says here, as Canada's new government rebuilds, rearms, and reinvests in the Canadian Armed Forces, we are focused on providing the women and men in uniform with the equipment they need when they need it. With the right tools in their arsenal, we will reinforce Canada's sovereignty, create high-paying new careers for Canadian workers, and strengthen our defense partnership with allies. As part of this mission, Canada signed a security and defense partnership with the European Union earlier this year and launched negotiations towards Canada's participation in Security Action for Europe, that's SAFE, a key pillar of the EU's Readiness 2030 plan. For Canada and the EU member states who are NATO allies, this will help deliver on defense capability targets more quickly and economically. Today, the Prime Minister, Mark Carney, announced the conclusion of negotiations for Canada's participation in SAFE, unlocking billions of dollars in potential defense opportunities for Canadian businesses. SAFE provides up to $244 billion Canadian in loans to EU member states to support large-scale defense projects, including acquiring critical capabilities such as ammunition, missiles, drones, artillery systems, and infantry weapons. As all 27 EU member states increase defense investments, greater cooperation on procurement opens massive new opportunities for Canadian manufacturers to build and export Canadian-made technologies and capabilities. As EU countries strengthen their defense capabilities through SAFE, Canadian participation will give our defense industry expanded access to the European market, attract new reliable suppliers for the Canadian Armed Forces, and catalyze massive private investment in Canada, creating higher paying careers, growing Canadian industries, and bolstering transatlantic defense readiness. With this agreement, Canada will become the only country outside of Europe with preferential access. Canada's participation in SAFE will be facilitated by the new Defense Investment Agency, which will remove red tape, centralize review and approval, and bolster industrial capacity. With negotiations now concluded, Canada and the EU will work to swiftly ratify the bilateral SAFE agreement, with the goal to officially launch Canada's participation in SAFE in the coming weeks. Prime Minister Mark Carney is quoted as saying, "In a dangerous and divided world, Canada and Europe are elevating our defense partnerships to rapidly procure new equipment and technology, accelerate NATO targets, and catalyze tremendous opportunities for our defense manufacturers. Canada's participation in SAFE will fill key capability gaps, expand markets for Canadian suppliers, and attract European defense investment into Canada." And the Honorable David J. McGuinty, Minister of National Defense, says SAFE is a force multiplier for Canada. Our participation in SAFE unlocks unprecedented opportunities for Canadian manufacturers to build what our allies need and what our forces can rely on. This partnership accelerates our own rearmament while showcasing the world-class capabilities of Canadian workers, engineers, and innovators. So there you go. And a little background here. Uh, Readiness 2030, the overall plan, is the European Commission's plan to boost defense funding in Europe, including through SAFE. In total, it aims to leverage up to $1.3 trillion to strengthen Europe's defense capacity, including over $244 billion from the SAFE instrument. So the SAFE instrument is just the loan guarantees instrument that gives access to, again, about $1.3 trillion in economic activity. So that's a big deal, and the partnership deal with Europe, the Canada-EU Security and Defense Partnership, or the SDP, that was signed on June 23rd, 2025, by Mark Carney and the EU, or Canada and the EU at that point. So again, Mark Carney, elected at the end of April, signed this partnership on June 23rd, and here we are, December 1st, getting the announcement that it is finalized and that it's just a couple of weeks to go before we are going to start officially participating in the program. So that is a major development. And as we noticed when we brought you those Q3 numbers, economically, there was a certain amount of that growth that came from a boost in defense. If we remember correctly, I think was there was an 82% increase, if I remember correctly, in yes, government spending on weapon systems up by 82% in the third quarter. So that was a part of the reason that our economy did that much better in the third quarter. So if things start happening with SAFE in the first quarter, in the first quarter of next year, that will help our numbers quite substantially. All right. What else do we have for you with regard to that here? That was the Prime Minister of Canada's position from the Government of Canada website. Let's take a little look here from a news organization rather than the Government of Canada site itself. According to Global News, carrying a story by Reuters here, Canada has reached an agreement to join the European Union's Security Action for Europe initiative, which will give Canadian defense companies expanded access to the European market, Prime Minister Mark Carney's office said on Monday. Quote, yes, we already mentioned that Canada's participation in SAFE will fill key capability gaps, expand markets for Canadian suppliers, and attract European defense investment into Canada, Carney said in a statement. SAFE, a €150 billion rearmament fund announced earlier this year, is part of a major drive to get the European Union ready to defend itself by 2030 amid fears of a Russian attack and doubts about U.S. protection. And that's all they had on it. So yeah, it's basically that we signed, and that's the news, and there's not much more at that point. um, Taking a look here at there is Politico EU that says here the breakthrough follows months of technically complex negotiations and was communicated directly to ministers taking part in Monday's Foreign Affairs Council. Defense Commissioner Andreas Kubilius informed delegations that negotiations with Ottawa had concluded. There we go. Canada's accession to the Loan for Weapons Safe scheme gives Ottawa access to jointly financed defense projects and allows Canadian companies to bid into EU-supported joint procurement projects. For Brussels, securing a G7 partner strengthens the credibility of SAFE as it seeks to coordinate long-term weapons demands and ramp up Europe's defense industrial base. Hey, look at that. Being associated with Canada strengthens the credibility of their initiative. But apparently we're broken. Welcome to SAFE, Canada, Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said on social media. When like-minded partners join forces on security and defense in a turbulent world, our countries grow stronger, our industries benefit, and our citizens are safer. Under SAFE, third countries can account for a maximum of 35% of the value of a weapon system paid for by the scheme. Canada will be able to have a larger share, but it will have to pay a fee commensurate with the benefits the partner country and its entities are expected to derive, factoring in GDP, industrial competitiveness, and the depth of cooperation with European manufacturers. Other issues tackled in negotiations covered conditions on intellectual property control and limits on non-EU inputs for sensitive systems, including drones, missile defense assets, and strategic enablers. Similar talks with the UK broke down on Friday. The timing aligns with a major SAFE milestone. Guilbeault announced on X that all 19 participating EU countries had submitted their spending plans that will be financed by low-interest SAFE loans. He added that 15 members included support for Ukraine in their plans involving billions, not millions, something the Commission has been keen to encourage. So this is interesting that the participating countries have already submitted their spending plans that will be financed. So that means that when they say they are ready to go, they are ready to go. We're signed the agreement. It comes into effect in a couple of weeks, let's say, and at that time, their spending plans have already been submitted. It's not like that's when they start working on their spending plans. They've already done that, so things will move rather quickly. Okay. Well, gee, I'm really glad I went to go see the perspective of how it was being reported on in Europe and not just in Canada, to see how it was, what they would highlight, because there were some facts in that article that we didn't see in any over here. Yeah, that is this sounds like a very exciting agreement. Mark Carney may have done us quite a solid by signing this agreement. All right, moving to our next subject, and that is, of course, having to do with the oil pipeline MOU, Kits and Cubs. As we had mentioned, the Prime Minister went to the Calgary Chamber of Commerce and got 2 standing ovations. The first one was pretty much immediately as he started his speech, and then the other one was at the end. There was one part of the speech that made me a little uncomfortable when the Prime Minister was talking about things that they were cutting, and you could hear some cheers in the audience and hand clapping for some of the things that had been cut. And then afterwards, after he mentions that, he talked about, but also making sure when they made the cuts that they preserved things like childcare and the National Food School program and dental care and pharmacare. And there was no applause for that. Now, I mean, Calgary Chamber of Commerce, a room called capitalists, and will probably lean conservative. But you would think, again, that in the Chamber of Commerce that they would realize that having the things like the school food program and the daycare and the pharmacare and the dental care and healthcare and whatnot are things that attract businesses to come and set up here, because if they set up here, there are places that some of the best minds and the best workers in the world would be happy to live, and therefore more likely to apply to work here and work for them, and that there's value in that, and that too contributes to business activity and business prosperity. But they seem not to see that. They only see the cost. So I was that irked me, that there was applause for cutting the civil service and cutting consultants and cutting program spending on operational stuff, but no applause for doing so while maintaining the vital social services that are so economically beneficial to these same business people that were there to listen to him. But maybe that's just me. But he did get the 2 ovations, and then Danielle Smith got the boos. And again, for context, if we're being fair, one could make the case that it wasn't Danielle Smith herself that was being booed, but the concept of working in participation with Canada, the enemy, that was booed. But then again, she is the one that went there and got that deal and signed the deal, saying that we can work with Canada and whatnot. So, I mean, some of the boos, I guess, are indeed hers. But I wanted to bring this bit to you because when Danielle Smith um, was making her announcement, she was elated. And like I said, the hardcore right are not particularly down with this because their identity is rooted in, right, being anti against Ottawa in some way. Uh, Almost just like, if you are American, you do not remember a time where somebody hasn't been telling you that America is exceptional. I mean, if you live in Alberta and are under the age of 60, probably, you probably don't remember a time where somebody hasn't been telling you in your ear that everything that is wrong about your life and everything that is going wrong in the province is Ottawa's fault. Right? So there's mythology being built that has been built that's very hard to undo. So Danielle Smith, as I mentioned, I think yesterday, is trying to pull a hard trick here, right? She has been fomenting that sentiment, and here she is now standing up there and saying things like, I hope you believe today a little more than you did yesterday that Canada might be able to work or something of the sort, and that being met with boos. That made, if you saw the clip, that made Danielle Smith giggle a bit or chuckle, which again I found to be a slightly odd response. But you know, who knows? she, uh, some days I can't figure her out. I will be completely honest with you. But here she is after making the announcement, uh, getting questions from usually friendly source, Rebel News, and this is Ezra Levant, and yeah, I won't say like this is a confrontation, but he gets uh, into it with her a little bit here, politely, but he presses her. He's very, very skeptical.
This MOU will be enough to distinguish, quell any remaining separatist sentiment that may remain in Alberta?
Okay. Oh, sorry. I forgot. I wanted to put this question in first. That was not asked by Rebel for context for the Rebel question to come. So she's being asked by whether or not, separatist sentiment will now be quashed by the fact that there is this MOU, and then we get one. We get the sort of the lighter, the optimistic side, and then we have Rebel come in with the pessimism and the skepticism.
I hope so. I mean, I had always felt that the former government of Justin Trudeau created the independence movement, and my first conversations with Prime Minister Mark Carney were that he could end it. He could take the wind out of it. Because we saw this once before. We saw that independence sentiment was very high in the early 1980s when there was the National Energy Program. But when Brian Mulroney came in and reversed that policy, it disappeared. So I would say that good policy and genuinely addressing the concerns of Albertans is always a pathway to have a good and solid relationship. And I think the Prime Minister understands that. Certainly, based on this agreement, it shows he does, and so I'm hopeful.
Thanks.
Hi, Premier Ezra Levant from Rebel News. The first deadline in the MOU, if I'm reading it right, is April, where the duty is on Alberta to jack up carbon taxes. And the last date in the MOU, if I'm reading it right, correct me if I'm not, is 2040. That's when this pipeline, that's sort of the end date. It can't be any later than that. In terms of building trust with the anti-oil liberals, they're asking Alberta to raise carbon taxes now for a promise of an oil pipeline years or even more than a decade in the future. Does that really build trust?
Well, you have to start somewhere. And one thing I would say is that we did have the Supreme Court of Canada rule on the federal government's ability to set a price on emissions. So the Supreme Court has ruled on that. It's part of the reason why we negotiated a stringency agreement that would have seen the carbon tax price go up to $170 a barrel by 2030. We've demonstrated, and I think the Prime Minister agrees, that's too high, too fast. So that's why we understand that there was always going to be a negotiation around that. We froze the carbon tax at $95, pending consultation with the industry and greater work with the Prime Minister. But remember, Alberta was the first to have an industrial carbon price. They did in we implemented that in 2007. It's generated revenues that have allowed us to invest billions of dollars in new technologies, including carbon capture. So there is a commitment on the part of the industry to have a carbon price, and we did do some consultation on that. We're just glad that we have the means to manage it our way in Alberta under our tier program, and you'll see as of April 1st, and no, that wasn't a joke. April 1st is going to be the date that we have an agreement on that front. When it comes to the building of a bitumen pipeline to Asian markets to the BC coast. Though, if you read the MOU, those two things have to happen in tandem. That we have to see the Pathways project proceeding at the same time as an agreement to build that. One is dependent on the other. I don't know that the Prime Minister would have agreed to a new bitumen pipeline without Pathways, and we wouldn't have agreed to Pathways without a new bitumen pipeline. So they are going to be staged. They are going to go on together. We've already had a meeting with Pathways about how we're going to do that. That will require a trilateral negotiation as well. But I'm very hopeful. Since we have used carbon capture technology before for enhanced oil recovery, that's another part of this announcement, is that CO2 will be able to be used for enhanced oil recovery, which should allow us to generate more revenue. So I would say that you don't always get 100% of what you want, but we addressed 7 out of the 9 bad laws that I'd put on the table to, I think, what will be the satisfaction of Albertans. And I think that this will allow us to see some substantial investments.
I mean, that's the thing about a peace deal. You have to make it with an enemy. So I suppose the fact that for a decade, his Glasgow Financial Alliance for Net Zero, it was about putting a capital strike on the oil and gas sector. Just a couple of weeks ago, he was asked about pipelines, and he said, boring. So is there anything, I mean, after a lifetime of attacking the oil patch, he was even interrogated by the U.S. Congress for an attempt to capital strike their oil companies. Is there anything the Prime Minister has said to you in private that you could share with us that would signal that his lifetime's work of attacking carbon-based fuels will somehow be put to the side? Like, I think he's just a slightly smarter version of Steven Guilbeault. I think he hates the oil patch as his life's work. Is there anything he's said to you that make you believe that maybe he can be turned on this?
Well, I'll start by saying my joke has been that I would love for pipelines to be boring again. I would love for, no matter what party is in power, what level of government, that there wasn't sort of an overwrought response anytime anyone talked about building a pipeline. It's actually quite remarkable that we're talking about expanding uranium mines, building nuclear power plants, building new transmission lines through pristine areas, massive new mining projects, and not one of them has raised any ire on the part of any environmental group or anyone in the media, but there has been all of this ire raised around a pipeline. So I hope that we can make pipelines boring again, because it's just a way to get our product to the consumers who need it. I would say that, as you know, I was not a huge champion of carbon capture technology when I was in politics the first time. I wasn't. But I've seen with the passage of time, the investments being made and the fact that the technology works and we're getting better and better at it, and you can create a product out of it, including so that you can enhance oil recovery. I changed my mind. And so I would say that the Prime Minister, maybe in the past 10 years, it looked like wind and solar and batteries were going to be the ability to power industrial economies. I think the world discovered that's not true with the Russian invasion of Ukraine, with the instability in the Middle East. Everyone is having to recalibrate and rethink that. I was recently in the Middle East, and the conversation around the table now is talking about natural gas as a foundational fuel, not a transition fuel. So I think that demonstrates that there is a global understanding of how important it is to have reliable electricity. And so I have to just give the Prime Minister credit for perhaps he's recalibrating his own thinking on this. It certainly seems to be in the agreement that we signed, but we will trust, but we will verify. We will make sure that he lives up to the commitments in this agreement that we had, and we have to proceed somewhere with a measure of good faith. I can tell you 100% that the former Prime Minister would never have moved this far on these issues. We tried for 3 years, we got nowhere. And in my very first meeting with the Prime Minister, I said to him, you know, the way that we can get to an agreement is just orienting around a 2050 target. Our industry is there. We think it's achievable with technology. And you'll see in the context of this MOU that the interim targets are gone. And so that's what we're going to move forward on. And we'll see as we meet these milestones whether I'm correct or whether your skepticism is correct.
Thanks.
Ezra.
Thanks, Ezra.
We're going to take one more from the room, then.
All right, so that's with Ezra Levant, and that was close to 7 minutes of question and answer for just 2 answers. And Ezra Levant's second question was more of a speech than it was a question. But you can see Ezra Levant, right? You have to make a deal with the enemy, and I think Carney is really just a, this and that and another thing. I'm trying to like goad her and give her all this like red meat that she can jump on, and she's not biting on this one. The other person that she had to deal with regard to that is Sheila Gunn Reid. Yeah, another winner. Also from Rebel News. And she was coming at Danielle from another angle. I believe the indigenous one in this case. So let's see their exchange.
That is a thriving port for...
Oops. I'll just take a look here at Kits and Cubs. My timestamp was not correctly set. So let's just do that. And now, here we go.
Sheila Gunn Reid with Rebel News. Just staying on the topic of British Columbia, the Prime Minister has said in the House of Commons just 2 days ago, we believe the government of British Columbia has to agree. Now, just now, after he left the signing with you, his press release says these projects will only be built in consultation and partnership with Indigenous rights holders and British Columbia. So what is the real strength of this MOU when you have a partner who keeps giving veto to British Columbia?
Well, you'll see in the agreement there's no mention of veto. I think that there obviously has to be trilateral discussions with British Columbia to find areas of common ground, and I think we will. And there's also clearly going to have to be a formal consultation process with Indigenous bands, and we're prepared to do all of that. What I have seen is that there have been a number of projects in British Columbia that may have started off with a lot of opposition that over time got a lot of enthusiasm. Look at all of the LNG projects down the coast. Look at Coastal GasLink. Look at the opportunity now for additional LNG projects. Look at even the Premier of British Columbia talking about expanding TMX. That was not the conversation that was happening 5 or 6 years ago. So I would say that some of it is in the proving. You have to prove that you're here, you're listening, prove that you are being genuine in the consultation, genuine in addressing the environmental and other issues that are raised. And that's what we intend to do. We intend to be involved every step of the way to make sure that we're able to bring people on board with this. But it's a process. We know it. This is the first stage of it. But having the Prime Minister agree in principle that getting 1 million additional barrels to Asian markets is a good thing for us and for Canada, I think that's a major milestone.
Now, British Columbia, however, says that they're blindsided. They say they're considering a lawsuit, which could tie up any potential private sector proposal for years. It might even act as a deterrent to a private sector pipeline proposal. Has the Prime Minister given you any assurances that he would use constitutional means like the notwithstanding clause to prevent a proposed project from getting bogged down in a legal quagmire for years?
Well, I don't think he needs to use the notwithstanding clause because this is federal jurisdiction. Trans-border pipelines, trans-border infrastructure, ports, those are all federal jurisdiction. And I think that British Columbia has tried to use every tool in the toolbox, I guess was the term that they used before, and failed. It was clearly affirmed by the courts that this is not British Columbia's decision to make. That being said, we understand that there's a process we have to go through. We understand that Indigenous partnership is key to that. And so we are wanting to get the project to a point where it's on the major projects list, at which point there's a 2-year window to get to approval. So we've got our work to do over the next number of months, but that's the commitment on the part of the federal government, is that once something is on the major projects list, it will have a new approach so that it can be approved in 2 years. And again, trust but verify, we're going to hold them to that.
Thank you. And yes, we have time for one last question. Just keep it quick, please.
So there you go, Kits and Cubs, being pressed by Rebel News, being very skeptical about whether or not this is a good deal, whether this is real, whether or not this is advisable, because she's gotten into bed with the enemy. Ah! Oh, my word. These people, I tell you. So yeah, just the skepticism and the booze that she got, it's not only organic, right? Rebel Media wants its story to run with, and it's inconvenient for them at the moment that Danielle Smith is saying that this looks good. Pierre Poilievre has a story that he wants to run with, and it's inconvenient for him that Danielle Smith, for the moment, is saying that this is good. I am also, listening around as the conversation moves to from pipeline to no pipeline to MOU to from no MOU to MOU, and we have the issue with regard to the Indigenous community coming up as well. And somebody in the chat brought it up, and I did see it earlier today written down that the Prime Minister, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, is going to have, yes, there we go. Let's see. Today, after filling the unexpected vacancy in his front bench lineup with veteran Team Trudeau cabinet leader Mark Miller, who, as iPolitics reported yesterday, will take on the Canadian identity and culture files previously held by Steven Guilbeault, who resigned from the ministry last week over his opposition to the newly inked deal with Alberta. Prime Minister Mark Carney will be back in his front and center seat in the chamber this afternoon, which will mark the first time that he has faced his cross-aisle adversaries since the agreement that triggered Guilbeault's abrupt departure was unveiled in Calgary last week. He's also expected to address delegates at the Assembly of First Nations Special Chiefs Assembly this afternoon, whereas the Globe and Mail notes issues around consultation and major projects are expected to top the agenda at 4 p.m. And again, maybe he'll hear a word or two about that Zoom comment. But yeah, they need to stop stepping at it with the Indigenous community. But yes, there will be some advancement on that portion of the file today as well. The movement, the conversation is going to go more to, of course, to negotiating with BC and coastal nations. And as well, the conversation will move to, at this point, whether or not there is any market for a pipeline, whether this is a theoretical pipeline or whether it's a real one. And, there's I'm hearing a lot of the different perspectives, right? I'm hearing a lot of perspective that this is written in such a way that it will never happen and nobody needs to worry about that. And other people on the other side saying, this is written in a way that it really could happen. People making one argument, yeah, but you say that there's going to be a proponent that's going to come to build this pipeline. We already have one built. that brought in $1.7 million in its first year of $1.7 billion in its first year of operation. It's for sale. It's for sale right now, and nobody's bidding on it. Right? Now, there is a plan to expand its capacity. As we mentioned, this is part of the MOU. And there was an article today, I believe, from the Toronto Star that said that Canada, Financial Post, sorry, here. Bloomberg News, really, as it appeared in Financial Post, stating here that the Canadian government will likely look at selling equity in the state-owned Trans Mountain oil pipeline only after steps are taken over the next few years to maximize its output, Energy Minister Tim Hodgson said. The government purchased the pipeline in 2018 to ensure a major expansion was built. The project ballooned in cost to about $34 billion, but it opened last year and roughly tripled the pipeline's capacity to bring crude oil from Alberta to a port near Vancouver. Former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, who oversaw the purchase, consistently said the government did not intend to be the long-term owner of the Trans Mountain and would seek to sell it to the private sector, with a significant equity stake likely being gifted to Indigenous groups along the pipeline's path. Mike Carney succeeded Trudeau as Prime Minister in March, but his government will likely wait until tolling issues are settled and other projects are built to further expand Trans Mountain's capacity, Hodgson told Bloomberg in an interview. Quote, as somebody who spent my life in the private sector doing deals, if and when somebody's going to sell a project, you do it when you've optimized the output, said Hodgson, who spent 2 decades at Goldman Sachs Group Incorporated and served on the board of oil producer MEG Energy Corp, among others. Shippers using the Trans Mountain line have disputed the tolls they're being charged is too expensive, arguing they shouldn't be held responsible for the project's cost overruns. The regulatory dispute may not be settled until late 2026 or early 2027, Mark Mackey, Trans Mountain Corp's chief executive, said in an interview Friday. The companies and shippers are in talks on a settlement, with the next update expected by February 6th. The government would want clarity on the tolls, quote, so that the uncertainty doesn't depress the sale price, Hodgson said. Trans Mountain is also looking at multiple, quote, optimization projects that could raise the system's capacity to about 1.25 million barrels per day, up from a maximum of 890,000 per day today. The Vancouver Fraser Port Authority also intends to dredge a waterway into the harbor to allow tankers to load more oil. There's a number of very cost-effective debottleneck steps that can be done, which would significantly increase the production capacity of the existing infrastructure, Hodgson said. We should get that stuff done before we contemplate monetizing the value that's been created for Canadian taxpayers. Under Trudeau, the government had begun consulting with First Nations on how to transfer equity in the pipeline. Then Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland proposed a special purpose vehicle that would hold a stake in the pipeline, and Indigenous groups would have the chance to opt in. But the plan proved very complicated. The government had identified more than 120 Indigenous groups as being potentially impacted by the pipeline, and there were disagreements over whether some should be given better terms for equity based on their geographic proximity to the route. An initial meeting in Vancouver in the fall of 2023 did not go well. Carney's government has not yet said whether it intends to follow the same process for Indigenous ownership in Trans Mountain, but last week, Carney unveiled a memorandum of understanding with Alberta Premier Danielle Smith, and it made Indigenous co-ownership a key requirement for any new oil pipelines to the British Columbia coast. In that document, the federal government committed to using federal loan guarantees, quote, to help backstop Indigenous co-ownership of any new pipelines and potentially also of the carbon capture project for the oil sands known as the Pathways Alliance. And then you have other people like Markham Hislop of Energy Media, who tends to believe that the way that this is written will indeed lead to a pipeline one day. But his concern is that we don't need one, stating that in his analysis, in his assessment, that there's not great demand for LNG coming from Asia, and there are already about 5 countries that are on the record as having an explicit policy of not using LNG at all, that if there's something that they're going to basically skip this stage in their electrification process. They're just going to go directly to electrification, and that if they had a speed bump at some point, that they'll just go to coal because coal is readily available in the area and at a good price. So there's no need to convert everything to gas in the meantime for them. In addition, there's a potential pipeline between Russia and China called the Power of Siberia, the project that, if built, would in and of itself reduce 10% of the global demand. So that can create a situation. And again, there is gas used in Asia, but they're not for necessarily for purposes like here, like heating our homes and residential. They would be for higher industry uses. So there's not as much a demand there. On the other hand, however, with what's going on in the United States, because the United States is just, with their policies, are just doing a number on their own electricity industry, and there might come a time where they might be strapped for some electricity. They're going to need a lot of gas if they want to pursue their goal to be an industry mover, first in line, first in the field on AI and data centers. So if we do have gas off the West Coast, we might be in a situation where some of it is going south to the United States rather than to Asia if they keep on decimating their electrical grid in the manner that they are doing at the moment, especially since there seems to be an aversion to renewables, at least from the Trump administration. He also mentions that he believes that the noted change in tone from David Eby, from being much less aggressive than he was to a bit more conciliatory in the sense that he is open to a pipeline to the coast. He really wants to focus on it not going through that particular territory that Danielle Smith seems to want it to go through at the moment, because he doesn't want to risk those deals. Now, he's been more conciliatory. There's been talk, for example, the memorandum of understanding is not written that there's a pipeline going to Kitimat or to Prince Rupert. It's just going to the West Coast. So that could be anything. And David Eby has already said that he is okay with an expansion of the Trans Mountain pipeline. And what we could end up with after all this study is being done, that building another pipeline through the Rocky Mountains, which is very difficult and very expensive, may not be the best option, may not be worth it. But a tripling of TMX, because what we just did was a twinning, and back to the Port of Vancouver, especially with the dredging and allowing larger boats, that could be enough to get to satisfy Danielle Smith, and that it wouldn't go through the north. Danielle Smith has also been more conciliatory, suggesting that if it went to port in Prince Rupert instead of near the coastal nation, that there might be a way for the boat to go all around, and that would be somewhat acceptable too, but that would add a whole lot more cost to the pipeline, definitely. So there is some talk here, and Markham Hislop was doing some of the math, and he was saying that on the LNG side of things, wanting to increase our output to whatever, I believe the unit is called MTAs, to 100 MTAs from where we are now. I think we're about 25 or something. There was a doubling, wanting to double it to 50 by a certain time, and then double that to 100 by a certain time. There's a target in the Mark County's plan. Well, to do that, for all the infrastructure to be able to get that much gas out to a port and exported, there would need to be about $300 billion in investment going into British Columbia for that to happen. Whereas for the pipeline itself, would only require about $50 billion in investment, all things combined. So even though the deals that he has with those First Nations are contingent on nothing going through that area, it seems that with other plans that the Prime Minister has, it brings, according to these numbers, about 6 times the investment into British Columbia as this pipeline would bring into Alberta. And that might be a way to gain Mr. Eby's acquiescence. So again, we're seeing some chess pieces being moved here on the board. But people are definitely wondering about David Eby's slight change in tone. But he doesn't seem to be backing down in any way, shape, or form with regard to wanting to be sure that these projects that he already has signed up and that are really close, some of them are more shovel ready than others, according to him. He was recently giving an interview to CTV on their show Question Period, which is the Sunday show they have, and talking about that. And I want to bring a little segment of that to you, kits and cubs, here to get a sense. Now, David Eby, I have to say, knows his file very well on this particular issue, and he's doing a relatively good job defending his position because Danielle Smith can be a rather unyielding negotiating partner.
I understand that. I wonder, though, is there a way to mitigate that problem by simply outlining what you just did, which is that now there are conditions in which maybe a private proponent comes forward, but that proponent has not come forward. We don't have any indication that that will be the case. There also isn't even a route specified, right? Like it could go to Kitimat, but it also could go to Vancouver. Like we don't know for sure. The market will likely dictate that, and then the federal government will have to decide whether to approve it. Like, is there not a way to mitigate the concerns you have instead of kind of presenting an immovable position?
Yeah, well, I think it's important to maybe make the position of British Columbia clear here. The coastal First Nations are the ones that need to be at the table on this issue. Their concerns need to be addressed and they need to be heard. And since the late 70s that they've taken this position, and politicians of every stripe for generations have understood it, been clear about the fact that there shouldn't be oil tankers in this area because of the nature of the water and the dangers. Like we just had a big container barge just about go down. We had a big diesel spill with the Nathan Stewart that contaminated a huge area. Like these are rough waters. And that's why it's been supported by politicians over many generations. So if in fact the plan is to leave the oil tanker ban in place and not to go to the North Coast, then they're the first group that should be told that. And I would welcome that because it would make it so much easier for us to have the hard conversations we have to have about the projects that actually do exist, that are going to employ a lot of people and bring a lot of money into this country.
Is your position, Premier, that you have expressed prior to the actual formal MOU being released that you don't want to see additional bitumen pipeline? Like, is that contingent on it going to an area where the coastal First Nations have expressed the position that they have, or are you just writ large against it happening at all, even if it went somewhere else?
I think it's a grave mistake to get rid of the oil tanker ban off the north coast of British Columbia. I think that the risk of an oil spill is really significant in terms of the economic harm. Every Canadian that enjoys seafood across the country, a good chunk of it comes from these waters. There are thousands of fishing jobs. There's huge tourism jobs, and it is a big deal. But we've tried to put forward other proposals. You know, there is a publicly owned pipeline. This is not the first time Alberta has had this discussion with Ottawa. Prime Minister Trudeau built a publicly owned pipeline. It cost $30 billion. It's operating right now. I can almost see it from where I'm sitting, actually. And it's not operating at capacity. It could be optimized further to add significant additional capacity. We've offered that up to Alberta to say, we're happy to work with you on this. And I say happy, but it's gritted teeth. We fought that pipeline pretty hard for similar concerns. But it's built now. It's publicly owned. It is a moment for Canada. We're willing to sit at the table and work out those details and get it done. And so trying to find a path forward, trying to de-escalate tensions with our neighbors, trying to understand their concerns, what they would like to do, and I really hope they do the same for us. We are trying to deliver some really big projects here in BC. We have the permits, the companies. We've been doing work for years with the First Nations. They're just starting in Alberta. Don't screw up our stuff, because it is meaningful for the whole country. It means jobs for families. It means tax revenues for Ottawa to pay for public services, and that it doesn't feel like too much to ask.
Beyond, though, the optimization of TMX, I take your point on that. I take your point on the tanker ban. If there is the possibility of additional export capacity beyond that does not impact the tanker ban, are you inherently against that, is my question.
No, I think we can have those conversations. My anxiety is about this oil tanker ban, which is the foundational social license piece for tens of billions of dollars of investment in BC that is nearing final investment decision, and tens of billions of dollars of investment that is medium term as well, like expansion of the Port of Prince Rupert and so on. And so if we can agree that the oil tanker ban is going to stay in place, then let's have those conversations. I think that would make life a lot better and easier in British Columbia in terms of our relationship with coastal First Nations. And would definitely take down the temperature and maybe enable some creative solutions. I'd love to talk about refining. We're buying oil and gas from the United States right now. Let's refine some of that Alberta bitumen and use it in cars in British Columbia. Lots of people still driving gas cars, myself included. And why don't we do projects that add value to Canadian resources and get a net win for everybody out of that?
You sound, I hope you don't mind me saying, you sound less angry than you did the previous few times that we spoke about this prior to the MOU. Is there a reason for that?
Well, look, if the federal government is going to impose this on British Columbia, they're going to impose it on British Columbia. We've been down that road. I don't think it's beneficial to be fighting. The piece that does, Vashi, if you're looking for Premier Eby agitated,
I'm not looking for it. I'm just curious. I promise.
Well, no, of course not. But the Nutrien decision gets me agitated, because instead of Premier Scott Moe calling me up, engaging with me about this huge billion-dollar decision about whether to ship potash out of British Columbia or out of Washington State, he was engaging with Danielle Smith on this non-existent pipeline project. I didn't hear from the federal government about the Nutrien decision. I had no idea that there was even a prospect that this company would consider putting themselves in the hands of Donald Trump to have tariffs or ban of potash being shipped out of Washington State. And they made the decision, apparently, to ship out of Washington State instead of out of British Columbia. We should have been talking about their concerns about clogged up rail lines and access to the port. We should have been front of the line advocating with Saskatchewan, with the federal government, for resources around rail to deal with that. But instead, it was a huge amount of energy went into this non-existent pipeline project. And my worry is we're taking our eyes off the prize.
Okay, I will leave it on that note. Premier, thank you so much. Appreciate your time as always.
Yeah, you bet, Vashi. Good to see you.
When we come back.
So there you have it, kits and cubs there as well. Premier David Eby, Vashi Capello noting his tonal change, very concentrated on the specific area where the tanker ban is. He seems to be limiting his comments, his objections to there now. I'm not sure if he mentioned it in this interview or whether it was another one, but I saw a lot of you kits talking about refinery. He even mentioned that he was open to maybe creating a new refinery in the Vancouver area if there was, if there was going to be more activity through there rather than through northern British Columbia. So, yeah. Like I said, things are moving. In these answers that we got from Danielle Smith and David Eby, also there was a lot of recognition of legal realities, right? Legal realities that, there is consultation that needs to be done with First Nations, free, prior, and informed consent. That matters. Reality from Danielle Smith that the Government of Canada has won the debate on whether or not it can charge carbon regulatory fees, either consumer or industrial. There's no point in litigating that. Again, David Eby recognizing that he did take it to court last time. It was the government of John Hogan. I believe he might have been arguing it. But they did go to court onto whether or not British Columbia actually has a veto, can stop it. And it's ruled that they can't. So, he's resigned, given that that's the legal reality. Here's my situation, so here's where I can act. So everyone at least not denying the legal realities that exist at the moment. Just how willing they are going to be to fulfill all the legally and constitutionally mandated obligations in order to get where they want, or how many corners they're going to try to cut along the way is what's going to matter here. All right, kits and cubs, I believe that that's all I have for you today on this Giving Tuesday. Um, yep, I think that's pretty much all I have today. I'm just looking through my notes, make sure I got everything for you. Yep. Oh, yes. The one last thing here that other people are wondering here is that um, given that there have been so many carve outs and special ways for Alberta, the danger people are foreseeing for the future is that premiers are coming in line, cap in hand, going, okay, and now I want my carve out, and I want my carve out, and I want my carve out. And what's going to happen if Prime Minister Carney says, no, you can't have that particular carve out? So, but you gave one to her. And then, we start out like acting like children again. But David Eby has a quote here specifically. It says that the bottom line for us is that we need to make sure that this project does not become an energy vampire with all the variables that have yet to be fulfilled. No proponents, no roots, no money, no First Nation support. So we can't be talking about this like this is the only game in town, because right now, again, it's just the only thing that we have here is the MOU, which is the conditions that the federal government is putting on the government of Alberta because it has decided it will be the proponent. So this is what we would expect of every proponent here, government of Alberta. It's up to you. Go make it happen. All right. Before we go, you know what? I'm going to save it for the Easter egg. There you go. Since we're talking about Canadians who make us proud, we'll do that. I did remember the thing from Rachel Gilmore that I promised you at the beginning of the show that will be good news. So for now, kids and cubs, that's the end of our episode of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. We hope that you love listening to us because we love making this for you. Remember, sharing is caring and word of mouth is priceless. So please tell your peeps and poops all about us. And please share a little bit of yourself when you do, why it is that our content resonated with you. It helps us a lot when you do that. Now, kids and cubs, if you would like us to help you because you are on the go, well, hey, why not, thanks to the Ray Girl, take a trip on down to the True North Eager Beaver on Podpage, podpage.com/the True North Eager Beaver with a hyphen between each one of those words. And when you go there and click on subscribe, when we have something fresh off the audio cast bandwidth, it comes directly to your podcast feed and you can pop us in your ears and take us with you, lightweight and portable. We will not slow you down unless we are just so interesting and engaging that you need to stop in your tracks and just give us your full attention. But otherwise, we will not slow you down. So, so please go there and make sure you do not miss an episode. Now, kits and cubs, if you would like to help us, we could use your help. And one of the ways you can do that is by going to the True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated YouTube page, where we have now hit 27,400. So thank you very much, kits and cubs, who have been subscribing to our feed over the past little while. It's we love it when you're there, and if you are there, please click on our buttons, like, share, and subscribe, because it helps us with the algorithm, and it makes us happy when we see our numbers go up. So thank you for all of your help. Kits and cubs, as well, if you would like to help us, we do incur some costs to bring the show to you, and we would be very grateful for enthusiastic expressions of encouragement, because you think that this is worth your time and perhaps even worth your dollar. If you would like to help us with the costs that we incur to bring this show to you, we would be very grateful for your donation. This QR code will bring you to our coffee page. That's coffee.ko-fi.com/eagerbeaver, where you will find the emergency hydration fund, which is also our tip jar. You leave a couple of toonies and loonies in there, and you will be doing your bit to keep your favorite beaver moist. Because a moist beaver is a happy beaver. And your beaver has been singing a lot, so he's a little dehydrated and needs that moisture that you can provide by dropping a few coins in our tip jar. See how I did that? Of course, kids and cubs, if you're listening on our YouTube channel, we have memberships and super chat if you are able to donate that way. And kids and cubs, if you would like to support us financially, but are doing the Buy Canadian thing, truenortheagerbeaver@gmail.com is our email address, and you can send us a bank transfer. That way, no U.S. oligarchs get your money. That's a very good thing. They don't get a cut. And whatever cut would go to them when you donate through your bank goes to us. So that means your donation goes further in helping us bring this show to you. So thank you very much, kids and cubs, for all that you do to keep us going. Now, kids and cubs, if you're not able to contribute financially, please do not worry, because the gifts of your attention and participation are the ones that mean the most to us. And we love that you're here and we want to hear from you. So write to us and let us know what you think about the show, or offer us your suggestions for guests. We are happy to receive them. And if you want to reach us via our socials, at True Eager at the Blue Sky Beaver Lodge or on the Jitter, True North Eager Beaver on Facebook, or right here on the Beaver Lodge on the YouTube channel, down here in the comments section. Write us a little something. We also have the Damn Fam Discord and our Instagram that is being run by Kit Uncover. Thank you so much. And then the Damn Fam Discord is just a whole Damn Fam project that grew organically from the show, because Damn Fam members like to keep the conversation going when the show is over. And I fully support that. So please, there's much more out there, many more ways to communicate with us, and we are very grateful to have you let us know what you think. All right, kids and cubs, let's see, because democracy is something that you do. We're down to one petition, E6821, and this is the petition to encourage our parliamentarians to pass some laws or introduce some legislation that would make it such that Canadian media is owned by Canadians for Canadians and producing news in the best interests of Canadians. And this one's at 7,146 signatures for now. So I put the link in the chat. Please go there. And if you're listening, it's ourcommons.ca and look for petition E6821, and you can add your signature there. And kids and cubs as well, do remember that if you live on Prince Edward Island, there is a provincial by-election coming up on the island in District 2, Georgetown Ponal. Voting day is December 8th, but there will be advanced polling days. Well, there was one already on November 29th, so I hope that you did go early. There was one again on December 1st, and the next one will be December 5th. Voting will be open from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. So please make sure that you go and bring your friends with you, because friends don't allow friends to do democracy alone. Thank you so much for doing that. My words of wisdom, kids and cubs, if it is shoveling where you are, shoveling where you are. Look at me go. If it's snowing where you are, you might want to get those shovels ready, because you might need a little shoulder power and elbow grease today. So make sure you stretch before you shovel. Make sure that you don't exert yourself too much, especially if you're over a certain age. It's probably not a great idea. And if you have a snowblower, be kind and conscientious about what hours of the day you use it, so that you're not disturbing your neighbors who like to sleep. And you might have to get out there and make it happen today. So make it pleasant as possible. And as your beaver, I always recommend, if you're able to, some hot chocolate after some shoveling. It's good for the soul. Nice little reward for doing a little work. All right, kids and cubs, that's all I got for you. It could be a tough world out there, so please be kind to and gentle with yourself. And now, because we didn't get to do it yesterday, and I know I'm so sorry we didn't do it, but may I please have your audience participation and say, Mr. Beaver, please cue the cock. And if you want to say it twice because you didn't get to say it yesterday, I fully approve. On 1, 2, 3. There you are. I love that, kids and cubs. You are absolutely delightful and wonderful, and I just cannot deny you. Your little cockadoodle-doo. So here it is. Hopefully. Oh, things look different again. Okay, there we go. It moved, but I found it. You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters, CanadianTarot.com, their uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and the Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. We are grateful to the Crier Media Network for its support, Pete Jarvis for our artwork, and Paul Joseph Something for our opening and closing sequence music. All right, because am I back? Yeah, I'm back. Okay, good. This is the news that I wanted to show you, kids and cubs, from Rachel Gilmore, who's got this great story for us from the NDP leadership campaign. As I mentioned, there was a debate the other day, but of course, when you have a leadership campaign, there are fundraising deadlines that need to be met, and they are staggered so that you don't have to all do it in one shot. But here we have Rachel Gilmore presenting us something that I really like because, how would I say it? Well, it shows the best of us. It shows the best of us. So this is a Canadian proud moment and strict politics.
I have actually got a good news story for you guys today. And what's even more wild is this is a story about Canadian federal politics. You guys might remember that in a recent interview on my podcast, NDP leadership hopeful Tony McQuail did something that I haven't seen in politics before. He temporarily paused his campaign's fundraising efforts so that he could push those donations towards Tenniel Johnston. Here's that clip, and then I've got some huge updates for you.
We're going to stop fundraising. We have a wonderful crew of people who've come to this.
Well, that sacrifice from Tony worked. Tenniel reached the fundraising goal to be able to stay in the race past the most recent deadline. But what about Tony? The second fundraising deadline was due for November 30th, and he had to submit another $25,000 to stay in the race. And as of the morning of November 30th, Tony was about $19,000 short. But Tenniel didn't want to leave Tony behind. So they teamed up once again. And yesterday, they launched a huge all-day fundraiser live stream. People drew, they played guitar, they played video games, and fellow NDP leadership hopeful Rob Ashton also showed up, bringing this group effort up to 3 of the 5 official candidates. But the clock was ticking and they were still thousands of dollars away. So you can imagine my surprise when just after midnight, I got a text from Tenniel Johnston. It read, "He made it." That's right, over this massive all-day live stream, a huge effort from both Tenniel, Tony, and their volunteers. They raised $19,137. Tony actually texted me today in between putting his snowblower on the tractor, which he sent me this picture of, and said, quote, "It was a wonderful day and just spoke to the hunger that people have for dealing with the real problems that we face as a society, both in terms of the environment and in terms of inequity. It also shows that when we work together and cooperate and collaborate, we can overcome what seem impossible hurdles, whether it's first past the post, wealth inequality, environmental collapse, or a leadership race not really structured to make it easy for ordinary folks to participate. I am so pleased and proud of the team that put this together in basically a day after the leadership debate. I'm also so appreciative of the artists, musicians, candidates, and activists who gave their time to this live stream. Go well and stay well, my friends." Tenniel also texted me today. She told me, quote, I was so shocked at Tony's generosity and recognition when he made the call to pause fundraising until I was over the most recent paywall. We hustled as a team to try to get the funding as quickly as we could because we all wanted to rally to ensure Tony made it too. And we did it. It took a combo of our teams and a 17-hour live stream, but we did it. Tony got the funding in the Central Party's bank account, and as long as they accept it, then he's through. Tony's team confirmed to me that the party is working with them to accept the funds, so they're, quote, for sure in the race, at least until the next fundraising deadline hits on December 30th. And it's all thanks to this extremely heartwarming team effort. What do you think of all this?
Well, I think it is absolutely fantastic and fabulous. It's the best of us. It's the best of us. So there you go, kids and cubs. I'm leaving you with a smile. Until I see you tomorrow, amour et bisous. Tune in to Mr. Grizzly's Grizzly Growl this afternoon. Hopefully he'll be there with part 2 of the story. I can't wait to hear what it's about. And I will see you tomorrow. All right. And now